Hey there! Welcome back to Through Nikki's Lens. I am Nikki and I have another video for you today. I can say that I have a benefit where I now have an additional degree. Can you still achieve your goals? Can you afford to pay your tuition, to pay your living expenses, to pay your rent, buy food? Should you come to Canada without having money? Is it really worth it studying in Canada during these times? That's something that I want to discuss with you here today. In case you did not know, I came to Canada as an international student. I have been here come December 4 years. And sometimes it's surreal, just the fact that I reflect on how things are now in relation to the international student program and how things were at the time that I was a student here. I also have another reference point, which is the fact that I have friends that came here as an international student as far back as potentially 2014, 2015. And I know persons that actually studied here as an international student, maybe after that time period. But when I started my studies in 2021, and based on conversations and information that I got from my friends and persons that I know that studied back then, things are way different. Since January 2024, I believe a lot of things started changing, and persons might say it is for the worst. However, in all fairness, and I will say that I am in no way bashing anybody. I'm not casting any blame on any group of persons at all. But I can truly say that potentially a lot of these changes that the Minister of Immigration and Citizenship is doing, it is because the changes that they are making now is because of what they feel is an abuse of the program. And persons can say that potentially immigration consultants are guilty of this abuse, students are guilty of this abuse, and it has a lot of implications, a lot of negative impacts on even Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and other people that are here. We all might, by this time, have heard a lot of things, a lot of blames being placed on a particular group of persons, on immigrants, on international students. There are a lot of implications and impacts on the current job market in Canada. You hear Canadians saying that their children, their teenagers, right now are not able to find jobs because the job market, there might be a lot of ethnic groups that are taking over those jobs, and once they have persons that they know that are in management positions that are like them from a particular ethnic background, they would tend to dominate those jobs. And if it is that you're not of that ethnic group, then you stand no chance of getting into the organization. There are truths to this. However, and that's not the what I want to get into really. What I want to discuss with you basically is it worth it to still come to Canada and study? Is it worth it to become an international student in Canada in 2025? We're at the end of 2024, and the next intake for several institutions, educational institutions in Canada, is in January. That's the winter term. Major organizations or institutions, maybe public institutions, their major intakes would be like a September intake or January. So, and the majority of the students would start their classes in the fall, that's in October and September. But what I want to ask you, and I'm asking you to engage with me, many of you who are my subscribers either came to Canada as an international student and you're on another journey. Maybe you're now employed, you're almost done with your studies, and you're looking to become a permanent resident, or you just want to information on immigration, Canadian immigration. So you're here. You might have some opinion on the fact, is it worth it? Is it not worth it to still come to Canada? Try to come to Canada as an international student and to study. So, one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that in terms of the requirements to become an international student, in my time, and I feel so old or feel so long ago, because at that time, as far as I remember, all you needed to show is that you could pay 1 full year of your tuition plus at least $10,000 for your living expenses. And if you came to Canada, you're in your application, you had your family. As part of that application, you had to show an additional amount per family member. And yes, it was hard at one point, I would say, to prove your genuineness, that you would come to Canada, study, and then leave. And that's the essence of the international students program. There are provisions to change their status from a temporary resident in Canada to become a permanent resident. And a lot of persons would opt to choose that option to get a post-graduation work permit after they have studied and to meet the requirements to become a permanent resident. There was a time, and then, as I said before, no blames being placed on anyone. But with the current immigration issues in Canada, persons can say that either it's because of this international student program, or the fact that the floodgates were open by the government to let in persons who are asylum seekers and who came here on compassionate grounds because there were wars or unrest in their home countries, and Canada chose to openly invite them to come to Canada and essentially stay here on a permanent basis. So some of those things, I would also say that the pandemic would have caused a lot of strain. Maybe persons are fleeing their home countries too, choosing to come to Canada as an international student because things would have gotten bad in their countries. And also a lot of institutions, maybe not the public ones, potentially a lot of private institutions too, and maybe some public, did seek to get a lot of international students to come into the country. We would have heard of news and where the government, the immigration minister, Mark Miller, would also have taken a responsibility to say that yes, they did open the floodgates to let a lot of international students in. And there was one time there was an influx of students who were given the opportunity to, there is a TR to PR pathway, and they invited a lot of persons to apply for PR through that temporary program. It's no longer in existence, and a lot of those things impacted how things are right now. I don't intend to ramble, and I feel that I am, but just speaking to you, a lot of things are coming back. And when you look at all those happenings, those significant events, you can see why Canada's immigration and economy is where it is today. And that was the comparison in relation to then and now. So it's harder right now for people to come to Canada as an international student, or the intention is to make it harder. One of the most significant change, and I don't want to jump ahead of myself, is the fact that, as I was saying earlier, I just had to show one that I could have paid 1 year's tuition. I had to pay at least, for the institution that I attended, 1 term's tuition, and show that I had the fees to pay for the rest of the year, as well as $10,000. Now, persons coming in or intending to come into Canada, they have to show significantly more. And you can hear, and I've heard of the impacts already, that international students are choosing to go to other countries such as the US, Australia, and other countries that have good education, that persons can get their educational credentials from those places, those countries, instead of coming to Canada. So, as you can imagine, the financial impact on institutions that depend on international students, the Canadian economy that also depends, I wouldn't even say depends on international student fees. And you will hear the statistics of how much, and even the financial gain to Canada of how much money international students bring into the country. So when you're weighing, you're trying to figure out, is it that the program is that bad? Does it have more benefits than positives? Should there be these significant changes that the government is trying to implement? You might have the answer. Let me know. Engage with me in the comments. So can you still attain your goals coming to Canada as an international student? This is up to you to answer. For me, did I attain my goals? I would say a resounding yes. I've had some significant milestones met. I finished my studies. That was the goal, that was the aim. I successfully completed my degree, and I feel that I am better off than I was when I didn't have my degree, when I didn't have the educational experiences, what I went through, the courses that I was engaged with. I now even have completed a certification. So I am in HR. So I have an HR certification in addition to the MBA that I have and specialized in HR. And I am also in the process of pursuing other HR certifications. So I can say that I have a benefit where I now have an additional degree apart from a bachelor's degree from what I completed back home. I am now a permanent resident of Canada. So that benefit came because my husband was able to come to Canada shortly after I did, my husband and my son, and we applied for PR using my husband's Canadian work experience and his previous experiences from back home and educational qualifications. And in a short time after finishing my studies, we became permanent residents of Canada. Shortly after my studies too, I finished my studies in July of 2022, and by September of 2022, I started working in a full-time, high-skilled area. So that benefit, I would say, that was a benefit for me. A lot of persons do have, and I'm really sorry about the length of this video, but I would say that there are various experiences for people that are here. Some persons I know would have finished their studies. They too might have a master's degree. Some have a bachelor's degree or whatever it is that they came here to pursue, and they cannot find a high skilled job that would assist their PR pursuits. So people have different experiences. What have I achieved since I've been here? And there's something else that I don't want to say right now, because I want to do a different video to talk about that accomplishment and how my family was able to achieve that. But I can say that our journey here, although not the easiest for many reasons, but we can see where we did achieve a lot. Are we where we want to be? And I say we, meaning my husband and I. Are we where we want to be? No. Professionally, no. When you come to Canada, a lot of times you have to start over. For me, I would say I did take a cut in terms of where I was in my career. I started in an entry-level position in the company that I started. And recently, I wouldn't even say it's a promotion, but it's a step up from where I started in the organization. So I'm grateful for that. And I want more for me. My husband wants more for him. And a lot of these other things that are happening in terms of the economy, Canada is expensive to live in. People might go to rural areas in provinces, provinces that have a lesser demand because of whatever reason, how far they are, how cold they are, the opportunities that are there. So they might have it easier. Where I am in British Columbia, in the Metro Vancouver area, it's pretty expensive. You made it halfway through the video. Thank you so much for staying to this far. I want to remind you to subscribe to my channel if you have not already subscribed. If it is that you found value in this video, share it with someone else. Like the video, leave your comment, engage with me in the comments below. As always, I answer all of my comments, the questions that come in. And I really appreciate your support. I really appreciate you sticking with me. Help me to get to 1,000 subscribers. I have a goal, another goal. Help get me to 1,000 subscribers. Please just don't watch and not subscribe or even like the video. That helps. A friend of mine shared an article with me recently, and there's this couple that is making a significant amount of money, way more than I am, for their household income. And they have a house, they have cars, they have various expenses, they have kids, and they are reporting that it is very expensive. And all of us by now would know this. So there are those challenges. If you come to Canada, depending on where you go as well, will you be able to make it? Can you make it now as compared to years before? When I came in 2020 and started school in 2021, it was not as expensive to live here as it is now. We go to the supermarket, and I can't even disclose how much we spend on food on a monthly basis. I would not even begin to tell you our monthly commitments. You wonder if you can really save here. Well, one of our achievements is one of the reasons why we're not saving as much as before. But persons, if you want to get around easily, outside of having the hassles of using public transportation, you need a vehicle. If you don't buy this vehicle cash, secondhand, of course, or cash if you have it, you are subjected to that monthly fee for repaying for the car. You're subjected to paying your insurance, paying for gas, not cheap, all these things, upkeep and so forth. So there's so much that you have to contend with. High prices for rent. If Even if you're not comfortable in your space, especially if you're sharing, some people will tend to hold on to their place that they got years ago because it's still cheap, and in depending on their situation too, if they're here by themselves, they can afford to live in a situation like that. For me, with a family, a child and a husband, living in a shared space is not it for many reasons. So you have to take on that high cost of paying rent or paying mortgage, whatever your situation is. So I know I might have missed the point that I was making, but I was talking about high fees and the cost of living here compared to then. So the lump sum of proof of funds that people have to now show to when with their application for permanent, sorry, to now show for their application to get a study permit, it's significantly higher. Now you have to get an attestation letter from an institution that you applied in addition to your letter of acceptance. The province that you intend to study in, they have to give your institution a quota of the number of international students that they can accept at any given time. So all of those things, it's harder now to apply or meet the requirements to apply to become a permanent. Sorry, I've been talking about PR so much on this channel that that's just stuck in my head. But you have to meet a lot of requirements to become a temporary resident that is in relation to a student. So there are other changes. If can you really get a PGWP, a post graduation work permit, after you finish your studies? In my time, I sound old, it was easier. And now with the changes, there are specific programs that you have to study in order to get a post graduation work permit after you graduate. Can your family come with you right now? Would your spouse, specifically your spouse, be eligible to get a spousal open work permit? Those are things that you need to take into consideration. Is your institution a designated learning institution? That's a major thing that you need to first find out before you pursue studying here. Can you still achieve your goals? Can you afford to pay your tuition? Can you afford to pay your living expenses, to pay your rent, to buy food? Should you come to Canada without having money? That's a big no in my book. I've had experiences. So there is a support group that I'm a part of for, we're a community. I would want to say family, but maybe not everyone thinks of the group that way. For Jamaican students, I'm Jamaican. And I have had the experience of hearing of a lot of cases where a number of students that started their studies here had to go back home because they could not afford to either pay their tuition or to pay their rent and buy food. Did they not come here with a plan? That is not the case. You come here with the best of intentions. You have enough money that you needed to show at the time that at least you can pay the 1 year tuition, and you have extra funds for living expenses. Some persons, though, don't get me wrong, might have not really had everything they needed, but they would have showed proof but didn't have the physical or the liquid cash, or could have used the money that they showed as proof of funds. Those were mistakes. A lot of us probably made those mistakes. A lot of us came here with some money. Living expenses ended up being more than what we budgeted for or thought um, it would have costed, and we end up falling short. You come here, things happen. You can fall on hard times. Whatever the case is or was, that money that you had, it would not be enough. Should you come here without having enough? And what is enough? No. Again, no, no, no. And I don't want to sound mean, but what I do know is that money can go like that. With paying for your medical expenses, your requirement to have medical insurance as a student, not all provinces will provide medical care to you for free. At least in British Columbia, you have to pay $75 per month. It adds up. Your rent, I don't even want to talk about that. Your tuition, not something I want to talk about either. So when you look at those things, and finding a job right now, it's near impossible, near. And again, if it depends on what type of job you're looking for. It depends on the color of your skin, what country you're from. If you, and I was alluding to this before, if you network, you know people, you're of a particular ethnicity, is that the correct term? And you find an organization that is predominantly your ethnicity, it's highly likely that you will get a job than somebody that's not in your ethnic group. I dare not even want to talk about racism and the color of your skin, especially if your color is like mine. You might not be the preference, and that's another topic for itself. That's another topic. So all of those things you have to consider. Can you find a job to pay and to make up for where you would fall short? In these times, it's not the easiest thing to do. So I would say to you, don't come if you don't have the money. And not a lot of people will have the money to, or even the resources, the financial resources, the support from back home or wherever to support them while they come here to study. Some people might, depending on your age. If you weren't an adult before you came, you have the support of your family, they planned in advance. Maybe in a situation like that, you'll be in a good place. But outside of that, no, unfortunately. So do not, and I repeat, do not, and I'm prepared to take whatever backlash might come for my statement here. Don't come to Canada without having the financial means. If you have links or connections or networks and you can get help, you can find a job, you can have somebody place a job in your hands, in your lap, by all means. The number of hours that you can work, 20 hours at this point or did that change already? I'm confused. So many changes. But I think there was an intention to move it to 24 hours. But I don't think that announcement has been made yet as to when that 24 hours will start. But 24 hours, depending on the type of job, how much you'll be paid hourly and so forth, it might not be able to sustain you if you don't already have your tuition and your living expenses, your money put aside. That might not cut it in this current economic climate. So this is not me discouraging you, and I would never do that, because I know people have dreams and it's good to have dreams. I had dreams coming here. I achieved some. I still have other things that I'm trying to achieve. But I'm not saying don't pursue an option to come to Canada to study. That's not what I'm saying. What I am trying to get across to you is that if you don't have the means, and I'm sorry for mine, But this is a passionate topic for me right now. If you don't have the financial means and otherwise the support too, because don't come here thinking that you need finances and networks and that's it. You need a community, you need support, you need people. I don't know how people do it, or some persons do it, but if you don't have a community, it's going to be hard in a lot of ways. So if you come with family, you have to think about childcare. You have to think about, do you get your students in school? If depending on the age of your child, correct me if I'm wrong, if your child comes here on a study permit, you come here on a study permit, I believe you have to pay the fee, the $75 for your child that's on a study permit as well, in addition to yourself, if you come to British Columbia, that is. So all of those things are things that you need to take into consideration. On the flip side though, how can you prepare? You have to be strategic. Know what is happening in Canada. Know your goal. Know what you need to do to get there. Stay on the straight and narrow, meaning do things the right way. Don't do anything outside of the conditions of your study permit or whatever it is. Your work permit, if you're a spouse of an international student, whatever you do now may impact your chances of staying in Canada permanently. Some people may do the wrong things, and you know what I mean. I don't think I need to get into that. But some decisions that you make, some things that you do that are against the rules, some people might have gotten away with it, but that means you would have to continue to lie. That means that if you should ever get caught, what it means for you, right? So take those things into consideration. Be strategic. Know what program you need to study. If it's something that you will get a post-graduation permit after you study, plan in advance. Don't make a quick or a speedy decision to come here without planning ahead, researching, and it goes back to being strategic. Research, know what you need to do, have your funds in place, know which province you want to go, where it's best to go, have a network then, have support in some way, find connections, and just be prepared for the inevitable. Be prepared for almost anything, because anything can happen. Before that, choose an in-demand program, a program that you can get a post-graduation work permit after you're done. Because if you choose to study something that you can't get a post-graduation work permit after you're finished studying, then your prospects of becoming a permanent resident might be limited. I won't say it would not happen, because you can lean on your previous work experience in your home country as well as your previous education and so forth. So just be sure, and your Canadian experience, I believe, too, once you get it. But you would have to leave Canada after your studies are done, and then you figure it out if you can apply for PR from outside of Canada after that. So think about those things. Adjust your mindset and your expectations. The Canadian dream. Is there still something called a Canadian dream? What is the Canadian dream? It might not be the easiest thing for people to transition from temporary to permanent and then to citizenship right now. I would say, and I did have it here when I was talking, I should have mentioned this about the abuse of the international student program, the anti-immigration phase that Canada is in right now. International students and temporary foreign workers are seen as the enemy, public enemy number one, I would say. So you have to change your mindset. Come here not expecting things to be golden. not expecting everything that the grass is greener on the other side. Do what you need to do to have your mindset in a way that if it doesn't work, you're prepared to go back home. You have something to go back home to. Don't do like some of us did, is to maybe not have something to go back to, like a home, your furniture, your things, because you wanted to get that money to be able to come here. But whatever you have to do, have that mindset that if things does not work out, you are prepared to go back home. Things might not be easy coming here. Is it worth staying in Canada once you're done? And this is another topic too, like the experiences that people have been having here. It might be less than desirable. Things are way different. A lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. So be prepared. Come knowing that you want to succeed. So you came here to study. Let it be the goal, your goal, to actually study, get that degree. If you need to go back home, at least you have a more advanced degree to go back home and use. And if things don't work out, you can go back. It might not be a bed of roses like a statement that we use in my home country. I don't know if it's that something that is universal, but it might not be a bed of roses. It might not be peaches and cream, but have faith. That's one thing I will not leave out. Have faith. Trust that things will work out. Be positive. Be positive. Be proactive. Be everything mindful. Be everything positive, right? And sometimes too, what you exude is what you will attract. So things will work out for you. Things can work out for you. One example that I have is even for me, that I didn't know it was possible for me to get a full-time job right after finishing my studies. And that's a testimony in of itself, where things worked out really well. I was able to get into a full-time job right a few months after my studies, and things have progressed since. I wouldn't say it was all up. There were some downs and sometimes frustrations and feeling stuck in my career right now, needing advancement, needing to grow and to be more. And it's possible that things can progress for you. I know a lot of success stories as well. I know a lot of success stories. Sometimes people don't openly share it, but people are doing well. So it's not all bad, but just be prepared for almost anything. I want to thank you so much for making it through Nicky's Lens, and I'll see you in my next video.